Hi, I just thought I would come on and share a little bit about my story. I am a mom from the Pacific Northwest. A little bit about my background is that my husband and I have been married, well, it'll be another week, we'll be married for 44 years. We have six children in all and six grandchildren. Three of our children, the oldest ones, are um, biological children, and then we have three adopted sibling group. Um, in the beginning, years ago, when our first three were younger, we decided we were going to go check out foster care, which we did. And we decided at that moment in time that our three children at home really didn't need to try to take in more foster children or any foster children. Uh, so at that time, we decided not to go through with fostering. It was probably when my three children were grown. The youngest one was around 20, that we decided we would go ahead and try fostering. My husband and I thought, hey, we did a great job with the first three. How hard can this be? We've already got practice. Um, the second three that we brought in, um, fostered them for a couple of years. And then, even though we knew about their behaviors, we went ahead and adopted them. I will say it is a different kind of parenting. But when we did decide to go ahead and foster, we decided we would just take one child and go from there and raise that one particular child. We were in the midst of getting our foster license. We actually had a specific child in mind. A friend of mine was not going to be able to foster care anymore, and so we said we would like to take her on. I had babysat for her. I knew this little one, and my husband knew her, and so we thought that would be great that we could go ahead and foster her. Long story short, my friend decided to adopt her and keep her. But she said she had another sister that needed a home as well. Well, we decided we would take her, still just the one child. She was older, she was 6.5. The younger one was 3. And when the social worker came in to interview us, she had very little information about the older sister, but she had a lot of information about their brother that was in between them. So she asked if we would be interested in taking both of them. Well, my husband and I thought about it and we decided, okay, we could do 2. We raised 3, 2 would be fine. Uh, After a while, after everything had settled down and we had the children started coming in, the first one came in January. She was 6.5. Then we slowly integrated the son in, and he didn't move in until the end of August. And before he moved in, my friend said, we're not going to be able to keep uh, the youngest one after all. Could you still take her? So we decided, how could we say no to the third one? So that's how we ended up with all 3. They all came in, like I said, at separate times. The youngest one came the first part of August, and they all had different time frames for their honeymoon period. The first one took her about 6 weeks. The middle, or the second child that moved in, was the youngest daughter, and it took her about 3 years. And our son was pretty much the day he moved in, he started showing us his behaviors. Um, well, it's kind of a long story, but there is so much that has happened. Our son is the one that was probably the most destructive physically, breaking things. tearing up walls, doors, breaking windows. Whatever he could pick up, he would throw. Um, he took his bed apart in his room and took the slats that held the bed up, would swing them at us. He would throw things such as fans, chairs, shampoo bottles. Like I said, whatever he could pick up, he would throw. One day he asked for a third cookie, and I had told him, no, you can't have another cookie. And when I turned around, he picked up a hardback book and slammed me in the back of the head with it. Um, he also liked to steal, but he wasn't much of a stealer as his older sister. Um, so they were both into taking things, especially food, because when they came into our home, they were very malnourished, or when they were brought into foster care, they were very malnourished. So food was an important piece to them. So back to my son, there was one day I had collected a badminton set from outside, had it in its bag, and he saw the poles sticking out of the bag. And he took one of those poles and he threw it at the back of my head, which created a fairly good size hematoma on the back of my head, which I did end up having to go to the ER for. Another time he was going after my two girls because he was angry. I got a hold of him, was holding him, and I held him for over 2 hours. That boy had the strength and the stamina like I had never experienced before. He did finally get away from me because I got so hot and so sweaty that he slipped out of my hands. And I lunged for him and got a hold of his pant leg so that he couldn't get to the girls. And he turned around and drop kneed me right in my chest, which caused some deep bruising. And again, I was back in the ER trying to find out if I was going to be okay. That lasted for a good 6 to 8 weeks, in quite a bit of pain from that. He kicked me once so hard he cracked my ribs. Uh, it just goes on and on. He chased me with an axe one time. And fortunately, I was far enough ahead and a little bit faster at the time. I was able to make it back in the house before he got to me. He then turned on the water hose, waiting for me to walk out the door so he could spray me, which was uh, a little refreshing, but a little taken back by it as well. He would ride his bike as fast as he can if he didn't like something I said, and he would try to run me over with the bike. He's tried stabbing me. Um, he told me one time he could not wait till he grew up so he could become a murderer and stab me in the heart. Something my son did was we have actually called the police on him 3 times. One of those times, he picked up a hand truck, threw it through or tried to break down our front door with it, and then he threw some crutches and rocks at the front window and broke the window. And then we called the police to have them come help. He terrorized our girls during that time. They have PTSD still from that. And when my husband called the police and they arrived, my son burst into tears and started crying and saying that my husband was choking him. And my husband ended up getting arrested instead of my son, which was an extremely hard time for us all because my husband was just standing in between him and the girls so he wouldn't attack them. He was trying to push my husband down the stairs, and my husband reached to grab onto him to help not fall, and he scratched my son on the side of his neck, which caused the police to believe my son instead of my husband. So when my husband got arrested, it was over a year before his case was actually completed. It got pushed out, pushed out, pushed out, and pushed out. The prosecutor wanted him to plead guilty and make a plea deal. And we were all standing firm. No, we're not going to do that because that is not what happened. In the end, they did drop all the charges because my son got arrested again. That was the time he pushed my husband down to the ground. That was like the third or fourth time he had done that when my husband couldn't protect himself. We called the police again, and because he got arrested again, they could see that my son had been the instigator now for the three times the police were called. Uh, they decided that, yes, that's what happened with my husband, and all the charges were dropped. But it took way over a year to get that completed. He is now still awaiting for another hearing for the last time that he was arrested from pushing my husband down to the ground and hitting on him at that time. My husband had to back off. He couldn't do anything to protect himself in fear of getting arrested himself again. So it has caused a lot of issues within the court system as well. He would poop everywhere, all over his clothes, in his room, on top of the toilet seat. I would find it hiding under his bed, all different kinds of things that he would do with that. He would punch and kick holes in the walls. He's broken many doors inside and out. We are on about our fourth front door in the past 2 years. It needs to be replaced again. He still struggles with anger, uh, but most of that anger comes from the lack of self-worth. In his birth home, he was told he was evil and no good, and he has believed it his whole life. He's broken our front window, big window pane that we've had to have replaced. He has terrorized and caused PTSD in others in our family. When he is in his calm and right mind, so to speak, he's a very sweet boy. He has kindness in him at that time and love, and he'll do just about whatever you want. But the minute or the second his brain starts to go askew, um, you don't know what might happen. He's had the police called on him several times, and even a few times when he was in elementary school. So they were having a hard time struggling, getting him set and able to pay attention in school. He's also started, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 fires in our home. So he has had a lot of things to deal with in his life. His older sister was a bit different. She was violent to some degree. She would cut her nails to where they were pointy, very, very sharp and pointy on the end, and she would dig those into my arm whenever she didn't like what I had to say. But most of her violence actually was towards herself. She did a lot of self-harm. She did a lot of cutting. She drank bleach. She took or overdosed on over-counter meds as well as prescription meds. We had to keep everything away and locked away from her, even up to about the age of 15. She even got kicked out of school one year, first grade, for taking a weapon to school. And it was a pair of needle nose tweezers that are very sharp, and she could have easily injured a child. We'd buy her brand new clothes, and she would promptly shred them and cut fringe out of her shirts and turn them into tank tops or into short shirts and booty shorts. And then she would hide them, and we wouldn't be able to find them. And so we'd have to go buy more clothes. We eventually stopped buying her brand new clothes, and we shopped at the thrift stores. That's when she stopped cutting up her clothes. She has been in a children's psych ward twice. Neither one of her visits there were very helpful. Their main focus was getting her on all kinds of medication, which does not help a child that has trauma in their life. The youngest one, she was a little bit different. She didn't start showing her rad behaviors until she was about 6 years old. So it took her about 3 years. And it began with mostly just screaming and kicking. She did graduate to throwing things. And even as she got a little bit older, she tried choking me twice. What I really would like to say, I'm not trying to just paint a picture of horrible children, because that's not who they are. They're little people that did not get the attention and the love that they needed in the beginning of their life. In fact, our son, even before he was born, was traumatized in utero with drug and alcohol. Their home was in constant array with uh, drug deals and drinking and all of the things that come along with that, domestic violence. Their birth dad was in jail more than he was out of jail, but it still took over 4 years for CPS to pull them out of that home. We've taken them to many different kinds of therapy, many kinds of therapy that CPS didn't pay for or their insurance didn't pay for. Uh, that's where I see the downfall in our society is they blame the parents. They think because we don't know how to parent that it's the reason why the children are the way they are. However, that being said, when the kids were brought into CPS, the intake doctor was shocked one day when we were visiting her for just a regular appointment, not knowing she is the one that did the intake on them. She asked me several times, "Are these three all in your home?" And I said, "Yes, they are all three in our home. We've adopted all three of them." And she just shook her head. She said, "I wrote up a long uh, piece stating that CPS should never, ever put those three in the same home again because they were so violent towards each other." That was a little piece that CPS kept out of the paperwork when we adopted them. Not one social worker told us, "Are you sure you want all three of them?" Because we were told not to put them together. One of my children, when she was in her birth home, was actually placed in a garbage can because the birth dad did not want her. We paid out of pocket for most of their therapy, for most of the extra therapy, you might say. We've done neurofeedback, we've done reorganization. Uh, they've done so many other things, EMDR, all kinds of talk therapy. None of that seems to work. The EMDR and the uh, neurotherapy was something that worked more than anything. We also took them to camps that would help teach them how to regulate and teach us how to help them regulate, which that was a huge piece of it. We also did a ton of um, snuggle time and eye contact and trying to develop a bond with each of the children. All of this did help much, uh, very much for our children. Two of our two girls are actually doing quite well. They're now in their 20s. They are holding down a job. They've been there for, well, one of them for over a year now. Everyone seems to like them there, and they get along with each other, and they actually live in an apartment. They're maintaining, paying their bills, staying sober, and thriving as young adults. Our son is having a little bit of a more of a struggle because of the lack of self-worth that he has for himself. So we are continuing to help him find a way to get him on the right road to feeling self-confidence and even feeling love for himself, knowing that he is a worthy person. I'm currently fighting the group that he's getting therapy with, trying to get them to do early childhood trauma therapy, and they have refused. So I had to go above the therapist's uh, supervisor, and I even went above that supervisor, and we finally have appointments for him coming up in the next couple of weeks to start trauma therapy. So hoping and praying that that will help to get him on the right road. It's just been a struggle and a fight for our whole life with these three children, trying to get the proper help, the proper needs that they have met. It has been such a horrific time where I love these children very, very much. They have definitely been a challenge. I remember when my first three children wouldn't do something that I wanted them to do, I could give them that mom look, that little, you better get busy. And they would all go, oh no, mom's getting mad. We better go do it. And they would do what I asked. The younger three would look at me and say, in their heads mostly, I'm making her mad. Let's see how much further I can push it. I even had one of my children say to me, because of the look I gave them, see, you don't love me. You looked at me like you don't love me. So it was a whole different way to parent these children. It's not the normal, conventional type of parenting. Many, many people, family, friends, professionals, doctors, therapists, all have said to me and my husband, what are you doing wrong? Try sticker charts. Try red light, green light, yellow light charts. Uh, give them rewards. None of those things worked with these children. Not a one. In fact, sometimes it made it worse. So I think again that the biggest thing is this is not the parents' fault that these children are the way they are. Not the current parents, not the adoptive parents, not the parents whose children have had struggles from birth. It is the children whose brains did not develop correctly. It's like their brain has some miswiring in it, kind of like if you turn on a light in your kitchen, but the garbage disposal comes on instead. It's a miswiring. And that's what would happen with our children. So it's a matter of getting that wiring in their brain back on track and working the way a brain should work. So my hope in all of this is that CPS, therapists, doctors, other family members can see and friends can see that these parents are doing the best that they can. And these children just need continuous help with uh, the outside world that's looking in and putting the parents down to see we need to build those parents up. We need to help them in any way that we can. It's taken a toll, not only just on our whole family, but even on our marriage. It's been a difficult, long, hard road for the past 17 years since we've had the children in our home.
I'm Katie Rose. I'm the founder and president of Attached Families Inc. I am a mother of two beautiful boys that I adopted from foster care. who, due to their own demons, issues, they spent 10 years um, being violent in some way. Most people talk about domestic violence and they don't include the fact that there is child to parent violence. And it happens every day in America to thousands and thousands of families who are ashamed or blamed or isolating themselves because they don't know what else to do. Most families who reach out for help and ask for help are somehow hurt in that process. They become blamed or threatened that they'll lose their other children simply for speaking out and looking for help. It is my hope that while connecting and partnering and collaborating with these amazing other organizations, that we can bring awareness to society that this is happening and something needs to change. It is no longer okay to say that the systems are broken and go on with our day. We must do something to fix it.